When I was in seminary, my preaching professor shared with us an important piece of information. He instructed us that whenever we begin a sermon, we should try to grab the congregation's attention right away, whether it is through an intriguing opening sentence or a memorable opening story. It is advice that I have tried to heed over the years, though I will let you decide whether or not I have succeeded. And what is true for sermons is also true for other things as well. For instance, speeches, books, or songs. For fun, I offer a classic example from each. In a speech that was given by Lord Balfour, he starts by telling his audience, "A good speech, like a woman's skirt, should be long enough to cover the subject and short enough to create interest." In his classic novel, Anna Karenina, author Leo Tolstoy grabs my attention with his opening sentence. "All happy families are alike. Each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way." And since I am a huge Beatles fan, let me share with you the opening of one of their more famous songs. "When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom. Let it be, let it be." No doubt, grabbing people's attention right away is critical. And while I do not know this for certain, perhaps my preaching professor learned about the importance of a good opening line from Jesus. And more specifically, from his most famous message, the one that we refer to as the Sermon on the Mount. In remarkable fashion, Jesus captures the attention of his audience through his opening word, through his opening sentence, and through his opening paragraph. One that we now call the Beatitudes. And so this morning I would like to take a closer look at all three. For even though these words have become quite familiar to us, they still have the ability to grab our attention and to transform our lives. Right away, Jesus gets our attention through his opening word, blessed. Blessed. In the Greek, the word is makarios, and it describes those who are free from the hardships of life. And synonyms for that word include happy and fortunate. Simply put, it is the condition that we all hope to live in at all times. The word is also ripe with religious meaning and can be found throughout the Old Testament, and most significantly in the book of Deuteronomy. As the children of Israel prepared to enter into the promised land, God had Moses declare both blessings and curses on the people. The blessings were signs of God's divine favor. But in order to receive them, there was a caveat. Their harvests would be plentiful. Their livestock would increase. Their cities would be secure. But only if they remained faithful and obedient to God. All these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you, Moses tells them, if you obey the Lord your God. And so as Jesus begins his sermon, he draws them in with his opening word, blessed. It is a familiar word, but as the people would soon find out, Jesus was about to use it in a way that they had never heard before. Jesus goes on to say, blessed are the poor in spirit. No doubt, Jesus has fully gained their attention here, for he has just used two words that had never been used and linked together before. Poor and blessed. And even though Jesus adds the words, poor in spirit, it would not have removed the shock value. Any form of poverty, be it spiritual or economic, was to be avoided if at all possible. And rather than being a sign of God's favor, instead it would have been viewed as a sign of God's disfavor, likely a curse for one's disobedience. And yet, Jesus begins by making this radical declaration. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Not only are they blessed, but they are also receiving a reward from God. Citizenship into this kingdom of heaven. And while it's likely that the people did not fully understand what Jesus was saying here, there is no doubt that this was a very good thing. And there is no question that by now Jesus had gained their complete attention. But as we know, Jesus was just getting started. He sends shockwaves through the crowd as he goes on to say to them, blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Blessed are those who are persecuted. In rapid-fire succession, Jesus rattles off a list of those who are blessed, of those who are happy, of those who are fortunate. And the one thing they all have in common is this. No one had ever considered these individuals blessed in the past. And frankly, no one really considers them blessed in our own day. Just the opposite. We consider them unblessed, unfortunate. And yet, Jesus persists in calling them blessed. And in the end, it's what Jesus says that matters. And so the question we must ask ourselves this morning is this. Why? Why would Jesus call these people blessed? What is it about the poor in spirit, those who mourn, those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, that causes Jesus to declare them favored by God? As I struggled to come up with a meaningful answer to my own question, what I ultimately concluded was this. Each of these groups finds themselves in desperate need of God. And in their need, they can discover that God is indeed with them. when we are poor in spirit. We acknowledge that we are spiritual paupers. We confess that we are at the end of our rope. But we can also discover that God is there to meet us with His grace and forgiveness. When we mourn, we acknowledge that someone or something that we loved is gone. We feel that pain of separation and that sorrow of loneliness. But we also can discover that God is there to comfort us with His love. When we are being persecuted for our faith, we acknowledge that following Christ has its price to pay. We realize that Jesus never promised us a life that would be full of ease. But we can also discover that even persecution can bring us closer to God. To summarize all of this, Jesus has turned our understanding of blessed completely upside down. Those who are blessed are not those who simply enjoy a certain good things in life. Power, pleasure, health, wealth, or fame. No, those who are blessed realize deep in their heart that God is truly with them, no matter what those outward circumstances might be. In fact, it is those who are most desperately in need of God who tend to search most intensely for Him. And in so doing, they discover that God is in their very midst. Without a doubt, in the opening words of this sermon, Jesus has captured our undivided attention. And now that we are listening, He has some other things to say. And so for the next 3 weeks, we will continue to listen to what Jesus has to say in this sermon. Words that will surprise us. Words that will challenge us. But ultimately, words that will lead us to follow in the example of the one who spoke them, allowing us to live as faithful citizens of this kingdom of heaven, even as we continue to live here on this earth. Amen. Amen. Our hymn for this day is, or the hymn of the day is hymn number 728. Blessed are they, as you're able, I invite you to